The jungle hums with secrets, deep, ancient, and alive. The air, thick with the scent of damp earth and orchids, holds the echoes of forgotten kings. Among them, one name rises like a stone carving through time: Pakal the Great. A boy born in a city of gods, a man who would shape Palenque's destiny, and a king whose face is carved in jade for eternity. Imagine walking beneath the towering temples of Palenque as they stood at the height of their glory. Sunlight gleaming off limestone, stairways reaching toward the heavens. The rustle of leaves, the distant call of howler monkeys, the flicker of torchlight on walls etched with stories. In this world of cosmic rituals and sacred bloodlines, Pakal's story unfolds. Not just as a ruler, but as a father, a dreamer, a man. He ruled not with an iron fist, but with the vision of a sky watcher, a man who looked beyond the horizon, who dared to believe in the eternity of his city. His was a life woven into the very stones of Palenque, and long after his body returned to the earth, the stories whispered by those stones endured. This is the story of Pakal the Great, not just as a king, but as a legend carved into the bones of the earth itself. If you enjoyed this journey, take a moment to like and subscribe, so we can wander through more forgotten paths together. Now, let us begin. The morning sun pierces through the dense canopy like a blade, slicing golden shafts of light onto the forest floor. The air is warm, almost heavy, carrying the fragrance of wet leaves, moss, and the faint smoke of distant hearths. Palenque stirs to life as it has for generations. Stone steps echoing with the footsteps of priests, artisans, and merchants. The gentle hum of the city rising in a rhythm as old as the trees themselves. In a modest chamber within the palace, a boy is born. His name, Kinich Janab Pakal, will one day be spoken with reverence across the Yucatan. But for now, he is simply a child. Eyes wide, skin warm, breath shallow as he feels the pulse of the earth beneath him. His mother, Lady Sakuk, watches over him with a gaze both tender and fierce. She knows the weight he will carry. His father is gone. Whispers of lineage tangled in the roots of the kingdom. But the blood of kings flows in this child's veins. Outside, the city breathes. The sound of water trickling through aqueducts, the calls of traders offering cacao and obsidian, the murmured prayers to gods whose faces are carved in stone. Pakal's cradle is not just a wooden frame, it is a resting place for the hopes of a dynasty. The gods, it is said, favor those born under certain signs, and Pakal's birth aligns with a rare celestial event. The sun and Venus shimmered in tandem, their paths crossing in a way that priests later interpreted as a cosmic blessing. The boy would one day carry the weight of the heavens on his shoulders. But that day lies far ahead. For now, he grows under the watchful gaze of the palace, its walls adorned with glyphs and murals, its corridors alive with the scent of copal incense and crushed flowers. Pakal learns not from books, but from the voices around him, the soft lull of his mother's stories, the chants of the priests, the steady rhythm of the builders shaping stone with simple tools. His fingers brush the limestone blocks that will one day bear his own story, though he does not yet know it. He is 5 when he first ascends the temple steps, hand in hand with his mother. The stones are warm beneath his bare feet, the sun harsh on his skin. The priests speak in low tones, their words weaving into the fabric of the moment like threads of an unseen tapestry. They chant of gods and ancestors, of maize and rain, of sacrifice and renewal. Pakal listens, though he does not yet understand. The weight of expectation is already forming around him like a mantle of feathers and jade. There are other children in the palace, sons of nobles, daughters of priests, but Pakal feels different. He does not know why, only that he is watched. The servants bow their heads when he passes. The sculptors glance at him as if memorizing the curve of his cheek, the tilt of his brow. Even the scribes pause, their reed pens hovering over bark paper codices as if waiting for the future to take shape. The years pass in the slow, measured way of the Maya calendar. Cycles upon cycles, each day marked by the movement of stars, the phases of the moon. Pakal learns to read the glyphs, tracing them with his finger along the walls, whispering their sounds under his breath. He watches the stonemasons carve intricate designs into temple facades, jaguar warriors, serpents, gods with fierce eyes and outstretched hands. He asks questions, always questions. Why is the god of maize so important? Why do the kings wear masks of jade? Why does the city burn torches when the moon is dark? His mother answers patiently, sometimes with a smile, sometimes with a sigh. Because we are part of the cycle, she tells him. The gods give, and we give back. It is the way of things. But there are moments when Pakal sees something different in her eyes. A flicker of worry, perhaps even fear. Palenque is not at peace. There are rival cities, rival kings, whispers of war in the wind. The jungle is thick with unseen eyes, and the balance of power is delicate as a spider's web. At the age of 12, Pakal stands atop the Temple of the Skull, looking out over the city. The wind brushes through the trees, carrying the scent of flowering ceiba trees and the faint tang of limestone dust. Below him, the city sprawls in an intricate mosaic. Temples, plazas, the ball court where the fate of men is decided with a rubber ball and the swing of a hip. He feels the pulse of the city beneath his feet, the heartbeat of something far older than himself. He knows he is small in the grand scheme of things, yet he feels the eyes of the gods upon him, as if they are waiting. Waiting for him to step into the role he was born to play. The jungle holds its breath, as if the trees themselves know that change is coming. Dawn breaks over Palenque, a soft, golden haze spilling through the mist. The city stirs, a quiet ripple of life emerging from the dark hours. Stone walls, warm from the rising sun, gleam with dew. Smoke curls from the hearths. The scent of maize porridge mingles with the fragrance of crushed flowers, and somewhere, a flute begins to play, its notes curling through the air like a fragile thread. This is a city awakening, not just from sleep, but from centuries of quiet resilience. Palenque has long been a jewel nestled within the embrace of the Chiapas Mountains, but now it is poised for something more. Beneath the limestone steps and temple walls lies a yearning, a hunger for greatness, for legacy, for the breath of the gods themselves. At the heart of it all is Pakal. He walks the pathways of his city, no longer a child carried in his mother's arms, but a young man with the weight of lineage pressed upon his shoulders. His footsteps are light, almost reverent, as he moves through the plazas, past the ball court where warriors test their skill, past the market where traders haggle over cacao beans and obsidian blades. The sounds of the city envelop him, the laughter of children, the rhythmic tap-tap of stoneworkers at their craft, the low chants of priests calling down blessings from the gods. And above it all, the temples rise, silent and eternal. The Temple of the Inscriptions, still incomplete, casts a long shadow across the plaza. Pakal stands beneath it, tilting his head back to follow the lines of its terraces. The geometry so precise, it feels as though it were whispered into existence by the stars themselves. He dreams of what it will become. The elders speak of a city that must reflect the cosmos, a mirror of the heavens carved into stone and mortar. The rulers of Palenque are not just kings. They are mediators between the earth and the sky, conduits for the divine. Every wall, every stairway, every glyph etched into limestone tells a story, anchoring the people to the gods and the gods to the people. Pakal listens, absorbing the weight of this truth. His fingers brush the rough stone, and for a moment he feels it hum beneath his touch, as if the city itself is actually waiting to be awakened. But Palenque is not a city of peace. Beyond the trees, rival kingdoms sharpen their obsidian blades. Calakmul, Tikal, and others. Cities with their own kings, their own ambitions. The jungle is thick with unspoken rivalries, the air heavy with the scent of old blood. Pakal knows this. He has seen the scars left by war, the empty places where statues once stood, toppled in conquest, The elders speak in careful tones of past defeats, of battles lost to the north. Palenque's greatness is not assured. It must be claimed, built, defended. In the palace, Pakal studies under the priests, learning not just the art of rulership, but the language of the cosmos. They teach him to read the stars, to interpret the shadows of eclipses, to understand the cycles of time etched into the calendar. He traces the curves of glyphs on bark paper codices, his brow furrowed in concentration. Each symbol is a key, a whisper from the past, a fragment of the god's will. It is not enough to rule. One must know when to plant and when to harvest, when to speak and when to fall silent, when to wage war and when to build temples that kiss the sky. The days pass in a steady rhythm, marked by the rising and setting sun, by the smoke of incense curling upward in the temples. Pakal watches the city grow. Artisans shape stone into jaguars and serpents, carving their shapes with a patience that feels almost reverential. The ball court echoes with the slap of the rubber ball, the cheers of the crowd. Women carry baskets of maize and chili peppers to the market, their laughter spilling into the air like sunlight on water. The city is alive, vibrant, pulsing with potential. And yet, beneath the surface, there is tension. The Council of Nobles is divided. Some see Palenque as a city destined for greatness. Others fear the cost of ambition. There are whispers of unrest, of alliances shifting in the shadows. Pakal feels it in the way the elders pause before speaking, in the way his mother's gaze lingers on the horizon, as if watching for a threat she cannot yet name. One evening, as the sky darkens and the stars emerge like ancient eyes, Pakal stands atop the Temple of the Sun. The air is cool, carrying the scent of rain-damp earth and blooming night flowers. The city stretches before him, bathed in the soft glow of torchlight. The jungle murmurs in the darkness, a low, steady pulse beneath the sounds of the city. He closes his eyes and listens. The hum of the people, the crackle of fire, the distant rhythm of drums, the soft whisper of stone against stone as masons work by torchlight, shaping the bones of the city. It is a symphony of life, and it fills him with a quiet, fierce determination. Palenque is more than just a collection of buildings. It is a living, breathing entity, a reflection of the cosmos made real. And Pakal feels deep in his bones that he is meant to be its guardian, its builder, its voice. He opens his eyes and looks out over the rooftops, the terraces, the plazas. He imagines what they could become. Towers that pierce the sky, temples that sing the stories of gods and men. A city that will endure, not just for a generation, but for centuries. The night air is thick with possibility. The stars shimmer, distant and cold. But Pakal feels their warmth all the same, because he knows they have watched over Palenque for centuries, and they will watch over him too. The city is awakening, and so is he. The rain falls in silver threads, soft and steady, washing over the stone courtyards of Palenque like a benediction. It pools in the carved hollows of the plazas, trickles down the grooves of temple stairways, darkens the intricate glyphs that whisper of gods and kings. The jungle breathes in the rain, and the city seems to shimmer in its own reflection. An echo of the heavens, made tangible on earth. In the palace, Pakal stands in a chamber filled with incense smoke and flickering torchlight. His hands rest on the smooth jade of an offering plate, the cool weight of it grounding him in this moment. A moment that feels both ancient and new. The priests gather around him, their faces painted, their voices low and steady as they chant the names of the gods. Itzamnaj, Kinichajao, the lords of the underworld. The words ripple through the air like waves, carrying Pakal's name into the ears of the divine. He is no longer just a boy born to a lineage. He is now a king. The ritual is as old as the stones themselves. Pakal feels the weight of it settle over his shoulders like the heavy mantle of a rain-soaked cloak. The crown is placed upon his brow, woven of jade and feathers, the green stones catching the torchlight like shards of the jungle itself. His mother, Lady Sakuk, stands nearby, her eyes glistening with pride and something else. A flicker of sadness, perhaps, or relief that her son has stepped into his destiny. The people of Palenque gather in the plazas below, their faces turned upward toward the temple steps. They stand shoulder to shoulder, farmers with hands calloused from the fields, artisans smelling of wet clay, children clutching woven dolls. The drums begin to beat, low and insistent, a pulse that seems to rise from the earth itself. And when Pakal appears at the top of the steps, arms raised toward the sky, the crowd erupts in a roar, not just of joy, but of something deeper. It is the sound of a people anchoring their hope to a single figure. A boy no longer. A man now. A king. The rain eases into a gentle mist and the air feels charged, as if the gods themselves are watching. Pakal raises his eyes to the sky, the clouds parting just enough for the sun to cast a golden glow on the wet stones. It feels like a sign, like the gods have opened a door just for him. And in that moment, he understands something profound. Kingship is not a gift. It is a burden, a promise etched into blood and stone, a legacy that must be earned every single day. He begins his rule not with conquest, but with vision. Palenque is a city in need of healing. Years of war have left scars. Walls crumbled by invasion, fields burned by rival hands. The memory of defeat hangs like a fog over the people's hearts. Pakal knows that strength alone will not save them. The gods favor those who honor the balance of the world, those who build as much as they defend. And so, Pakal sets to work, not as a warrior first, but as a builder of dreams. The architects come to him with plans. Towers that rise like mountains. Temples that align with the stars. Courtyards where water flows like veins through the stone. Pakal listens, asks questions, sketches lines in the dirt with a stick. He walks the city, barefoot on the warm limestone, feeling its pulse beneath his feet. Every decision is deliberate, every stone laid with purpose. He does not just want to restore Palenque, he wants to elevate it, to make it a city that sings the song of the cosmos. And yet, the gods demand more than stone. Sacrifice is part of the balance. The priests remind him, their voices soft but insistent. The gods gave him the crown, and they must be repaid, with offerings, with rituals, with blood. Pakal stands in the temple, the scent of copal thick in the air, and watches as a young man, barely older than he was when he first stood on these steps, is prepared for sacrifice. The boy's eyes are wide, fixed on the carved face of the sun god. Pakal's heart clenches, but he does not look away. He knows the price of power. He knows the weight of it. That night, as the fires burn low and the stars shimmer in the velvet sky, Pakal sits alone in the courtyard. The air is cool, the scent of rain still clinging to the stones. He traces the patterns on the jade pendant at his neck, a gift from his mother, carved with the glyphs of his lineage. He thinks of the boy in the temple, the sharp cry that echoed off the walls, the blood that ran in dark rivulets down the steps. It is a sound that will never leave him, a reminder that kings are not gods, but servants of the gods. They rule not for themselves, but for the people, and for the ancestors whose bones rest beneath the earth. The city sleeps, but Pakal does not. He rises, walking the quiet paths of the palace, feeling the cool breath of the night against his skin. He stands before the unfinished temple of the inscriptions, its silhouette stark against the starlit sky. His fingers brush the stone, tracing the beginnings of a story yet to be told. He knows that one day his own story will be carved here, his life, his reign, his hopes and failures. He wonders what they will say of him. Will they call him a builder of cities, a king who honored the gods? Or will they forget him, as the jungle forgets the footsteps of those who passed through its embrace? The night stretches on, silent except for the whisper of leaves and the distant crackle of torches. Pakal breathes it in, the stillness, the weight, the quiet pulse of the world, and he feels it settle within him like a seed. He is a king now, a man among gods, and his story is only just beginning. The sun rises slow and golden, casting long shadows across the jungle's emerald canopy. The morning air is heavy with the scent of damp earth, crushed leaves, and the faint trace of burning incense drifting from temple altars. In the heart of Palenque, stone hums beneath the feet of artisans, laborers, and priests, a quiet, patient song of chisels on limestone, of ropes creaking as stones are lifted into place, of voices murmuring plans that stretch beyond the horizon. This is a city in motion, a city reborn. Pakal stands at the edge of the grand plaza, his hands folded behind his back, watching as the bones of a temple rise from the earth. The temple of the inscriptions, his vision, his dream, his promise to the gods and to the people. The morning light gleams on the smooth surfaces, turning stone into something almost alive. He watches the workers, sweat glistening on their backs, muscles straining as they lift heavy blocks, their faces marked by dust and determination. The sound of the hammer, the soft brush of sanded stone, the measured chants of the overseers. It is the heartbeat of a city that dares to reach for the sky. Pakal steps forward, his sandals silent on the warm stone. He runs his fingers along a newly carved glyph, feeling the grooves, the lines that speak a language older than words. This stone will hold his story, but not just his. It will hold the story of a people who refuse to be forgotten. The architects gather around him, unfurling scrolls of bark paper, their hands stained with ink and dust. They speak of alignments, how the temple's stairways must echo the movement of the stars, how the doorways should frame the rising sun on the day of Pakal's birth. They argue softly, pointing to constellations mapped on animal hides, tracing the paths of Venus, Mars, and the moon across the sky. Pakal listens, nods, asks questions. Always questions. He does not simply rule. He learns. He studies. He imagines. The vision is not just a building, but a cosmic map, a stone canvas upon which the heavens are etched into the earth. The temple must rise like a mountain, its steps leading pilgrims toward the sky. Its walls must speak of gods and men, of time unending, of cycles that loop like the stars themselves. Every detail matters: the angle of the stairs, the width of the doorways, the slope of the roof comb that will pierce the clouds. Even the shadows cast by the temple must tell a story, marking the solstices, the equinoxes, the breath of time. And so, they build. Years pass, each stone laid with care, each carving telling a tale. The city grows around the temple like vines around a tree. Markets bustle, ball games echo through the courts. Festivals flare with color and sound. Pakal walks among his people, a quiet presence in the noise and life of the city. They bow to him, but he sees more than reverence in their eyes. He sees hope, expectation, a hunger for something greater than themselves. The temple becomes their monument, a testament to resilience, to survival, to a king who dreams not of conquest, but of creation. Pakal's hands are calloused from touching stone, his robes marked by dust. He speaks with masons and carvers, asking them to show him the faces they carve. Gods with serpents for crowns, jaguar spirits leaping from the stone. He watches as they shape the mask of the sun god, its wide eyes gazing eternally toward the horizon. He imagines his own face one day captured in jade and stone, his life frozen in the stories he chooses to tell. But greatness comes at a price. The jungle whispers with unease. Rival kingdoms, Calakmul, Tonina, others, watch Palenque's rise with wary eyes. The more Pakal builds, the more he risks drawing the ire of those who covet power. His advisors warn him, Stone invites envy as much as it inspires awe. Yet Pakal refuses to stop. He tells them softly but firmly that the gods have whispered in his dreams, and he will not abandon the path they have shown him. In the cool shade of the temple's chambers, Pakal studies the cosmos, tracing the lines of the calendar with his finger, lips moving in silent prayer. The cycles of time turn, each day a step in a dance that has no end. He understands now that his city is not just a place. It is a reflection of the universe, a mirror of the order that holds the stars in place. To build a temple is to honor that order, to place oneself humbly within it. One evening, as the sun sets in a blaze of amber and crimson, Pakal stands at the temple's highest terrace. The jungle stretches to the horizon, a sea of green and gold. The wind brushes his face, carrying the scent of rain and crushed leaves. Below, torches flicker in the gathering dusk, and the city breathes beneath him, alive, vibrant, waiting. He closes his eyes. He sees the future, his son, his grandson, generations yet unborn walking these same steps, their hands on the same stones, their eyes lifted to the same sky. He sees the temple standing long after his body is dust, a monument to what was dared, what was built, what was believed. He feels the weight of that vision settle on his shoulders, heavy as the stones themselves. But he does not flinch. He lifts his head and opens his eyes, the night sky unfolding above him, vast and endless. He smiles just slightly. This temple will touch the sky, and through it, Palenque will touch eternity. The jungle whispers in the dark. Beneath the moonlight, the leaves glisten like polished obsidian, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and distant fires. Somewhere, beyond the temples and stone-carved plazas of Palenque, drums echo faintly. A pulse in the night, low and steady, like a heartbeat muffled by the trees. Pakal stands on the palace terrace, looking out over the city he has built. Stone by stone, dream by dream. The night wind brushes against him, cool and fragrant, carrying with it not just the breath of the gods, but the quiet stirrings of trouble. The scent of blood, of ambition, of hunger. Power never rests quietly, not in a city like Palenque. Beneath the beauty, beneath the grandeur, a web of alliances stretches thin, taut as a bowstring. Pakal knows this. The priests whisper of omens, of eclipses that darken the sky, of strange patterns in the stars. The nobles murmur in shaded corridors, their words soft but their glances sharp. The gods demand balance, they say, and the balance is never given freely. It must be paid for, sometimes in stone, sometimes in blood. In the council chambers, the air grows heavy with debate. Pakal listens as voices rise and fall, some arguing for peace, for trade and tribute, others sharpening their words like knives, demanding war against rivals who threaten the city's borders. The names of enemies drift through the air. Tonina, Calakmul, kingdoms that have watched Palenque's rise with envy. Pakal's gaze remains steady, his face carved in calm. But inside, the questions twist like serpents. How many lives is peace worth? How much blood must be spilled to keep the city's heart beating? He thinks of his sons, his heir, Ken Bahlam, growing strong, his eyes already sharp with questions of his own. The boy walks the plazas with a kind of quiet confidence, the weight of his father's gaze always at his back. Pakal watches him sometimes from a distance, sees the way he speaks to the artisans, the way he stands beneath the temple walls as if imagining them taller, grander. The seed of ambition is already there. It must be nurtured, but carefully. Too much hunger, and it burns. Too little, and it fades. Bloodlines are fragile things. They twist through time like rivers, sometimes splitting, sometimes drying up entirely. Pakal knows this, his own family line nearly shattered by war, his own crown secured not by birth alone, but by the careful will of his mother and the blessings of the gods. He has learned that a king must guard his legacy as fiercely as he guards his city. And so, when word comes that Tonina's warriors have moved along the border, threatening trade routes and stirring unrest, Pakal does not hesitate. The council debates, the priests murmur of omens, but Pakal makes his decision in the quiet of his own mind. He will not let Palenque's light be dimmed by fear. If battle must come, it will come on his terms. The preparations are swift and deliberate. Messengers race along the jungle paths, their feet barely touching the earth, carrying orders sealed in wax. Warriors sharpen their obsidian blades, their faces marked with the black lines of war paint. The city hums with a quiet tension, like a drum held still, waiting for the first strike. Pakal walks among the warriors as they gather, their eyes flickering with the firelight, their breath steady in the cool night air. He does not wear armor, he does not carry a weapon, but his presence is a weapon in itself. His gaze lingers on the youngest among them, boys barely into manhood, standing tall, their hands tightening on the shafts of their spears. He nods to them, not as a distant king, but as a man who understands the price they are about to pay. At dawn, the warriors move out, silent shadows against the green of the jungle, their footsteps swallowed by the undergrowth. Pakal stands on the temple steps, watching them go. He feels the weight of each life, each heartbeat, like stones added to the temple he has built. The drums beat low and steady, and in the hush of morning, it feels as though the jungle itself holds its breath. Days pass. The messengers return with news, skirmishes, victories, losses. The battles are swift, brutal, and decisive. Palenque's warriors push back the intruders, reclaim the borders, reassert the city's strength. But victory is not without its price. Some do not return. Faces Pakal knows, men he has spoken to, hands he has clasped in greeting, are now only names whispered in mourning. In the heart of the city, the women gather to weep, their voices rising in a wail that carries through the streets like a river of sorrow. Pakal listens from the palace, his hands folded, his eyes closed. He feels the weight of every life lost settle upon him like dust on stone. He knows the gods have been fed, the city defended, but the cost is etched into his bones. That night, he walks alone to the Temple of the Cross. The stars shimmer above him, distant and cold, and he wonders if they watch in judgment or in silence. He stands beneath the carved images, his ancestors, the gods, the great cycle of time spinning endlessly. His hand rests on the stone, rough beneath his fingertips, and he feels the pulse of the city, its heartbeat, its breath, its sorrow, and its hope. He knows this is the way of kings: to build, to protect, to fight, to lose, to carry the weight of the bloodline and the burden of every decision made. He closes his eyes, and for a moment, he can almost hear the voices of the gods, soft, distant, like wind through the leaves. He listens, but they offer no answers, only the quiet reminder that all things, stone, blood, breath, return to the earth in time. Pakal stands a little longer, the night wrapping around him like a cloak, and then he turns back toward the city that still beats beneath his feet, alive and waiting. The rain comes softly at first, a whisper against the leaves, a gentle tapping on the stone steps of Palenque. It weaves through the city like a blessing, soaking into the earth, darkening the limestone facades, tracing the carved glyphs as if reading them aloud. The air smells of wet earth, moss, and the faint lingering scent of incense from the temple altars. Somewhere deep within the palace, the water drips steadily, a patient, rhythmic sound that feels like the breath of the gods themselves. Pakal listens. He has always listened, not just to the words of his advisors or the chants of the priests, but to the silence beneath the noise, the quiet hum of the city, the whispers in the stone. The temple walls speak, if you know how to hear them. The carvings hold stories. The stones themselves remember. And as the years pass, as the temples rise, and the people age, Pakal feels the weight of those stories growing heavier. It is said that the ancestors dwell within the earth, that their bones feed the roots of the ceiba tree, that their spirits drift through the cracks in the stone. Pakal believes this. He has stood in the shadowed chambers of the temples and felt the presence of those who came before. He has touched the glyphs that tell of ancient kings, of gods who walk in the shape of serpents and jaguars, of cycles that turn endlessly, swallowing the past and birthing the future. One evening, as the storm gathers, Pakal walks alone through the palace corridors. The flicker of torchlight dances on the walls, casting shadows that stretch and shift like living things. The air is cool, damp, filled with the distant rumble of thunder. His sandals slap softly against the stone, each step measured, deliberate. He knows where he is going. Beneath the palace lies a chamber, a space few have seen, fewer still understand. It is not just a tomb, not merely a room carved into the earth. It is a place of power, of mystery, of questions that linger long after the last torch has burned low. Pakal descends the narrow steps, his hand trailing along the damp wall. The air grows heavier, thick with the scent of stone and earth, and something else, something ancient and electric, as if the very bones of the world hum beneath his feet. He steps into the chamber, and the breath catches in his throat. The walls are covered in carvings, glyphs that spiral in tight, complex patterns, scenes of gods descending from the heavens, of men with outstretched arms offering blood and smoke. The images shimmer in the torchlight, their details fine and sharp despite the years. In the center of the room lies a great slab of stone, an altar, or perhaps a door. Pakal does not know for certain. He kneels beside it, his fingers tracing the edges, feeling the cool, smooth surface beneath his touch. It feels alive. Not warm, but pulsing somehow, like the skin of a beast slumbering deep beneath the earth. The priests have told him stories, whispered in half-light after the rituals are done. They speak of gods who came from the stars, who brought knowledge and fire, who taught men to shape stone and count the days. They tell of portals hidden beneath the temples, of passages that lead not just into the earth, but into the sky itself. Pakal listens, and though he does not speak of it, he wonders. What lies beneath the stones? Is it only the bones of the ancestors? Or something more? A doorway to the underworld? A ladder to the heavens? He closes his eyes and breathes in the damp air. The sound of dripping water echoes through the chamber, slow and steady, like the ticking of a celestial clock. He imagines the weight of the temple above him, tons of stone, layer upon layer, built to withstand time itself. And yet, beneath it all, there is this space. A secret. A question carved in silence. Pakal knows he is mortal. His body will fail. His breath will stop. But the stones will remember. He wonders if his own body will rest here one day. If his bones will lie beneath the temple, beneath the carvings, beneath the stories. He imagines generations yet unborn standing in this chamber, their hands pressed to the same walls, their eyes wide with wonder, their hearts pounding with the same questions that fill his own chest now. He whispers into the darkness, not a prayer, but a promise, that he will leave behind more than just a name, that his story will be written into the stones, into the very fabric of the earth, so that even when the jungle rises to reclaim the city, the memory of what was built here will endure. The rain falls harder now, a steady roar on the stones above. Pakal feels it like a heartbeat and rises slowly, his fingers lingering on the carvings as if reluctant to let them go. He ascends the stairs, the torchlight flickering behind him, casting long, stretched shadows that seem to reach after him as he climbs. Outside, the storm breaks in full, lightning splintering the sky, thunder shaking the very ground. Pakal steps into the rain, letting it soak into his skin, into his robes, into his bones. He lifts his face to the heavens, eyes closed, the water running down his cheeks like tears. The gods watch, silent, distant. Or perhaps they are listening. He does not know, not for certain, but he feels the weight of the stones beneath his feet, the pulse of the city, the breath of the jungle. And in that, there is a kind of answer. The secrets are there, beneath the stones, waiting. And Pakal is the one who dares to ask the questions. The days grow shorter, the light softer. In the afternoons, when the sun dips low behind the trees, the shadows stretch long across the plazas of Palenque. The stones, once hot beneath bare feet, now hold a subtle chill. The city breathes slower, as if the weight of years has settled upon it, wrapping the temples and courtyards in a quiet hush. Pakal feels it in his bones. He walks the familiar paths, the grand plazas, the temple steps, the shaded corridors of the palace, and each footfall feels heavier than the last. His body, once so strong, now bends with age. His breath comes slower. The ache in his joints lingers longer each morning, like an old song repeating itself in a slower, softer rhythm. Time has become something he feels not in the stars or the turning of the calendar, but in the ache of his own hands. Yet the city still moves, pulsing with life. Children race through the courtyards, their laughter ringing like bells. Artisans chisel stone, their mallets tapping out the beat of creation. Priests chant beneath the temple roofs, their voices rising in the smoke of incense. Life continues, weaving itself into the walls, the air, the very earth. Pakal watches all of it, the city he has built, the dream he has shaped from stone and sweat. And he feels both pride and a deep, quiet melancholy. For the cycle is turning, and no king, not even one as beloved as Pakal, can stop its slow, relentless spin. He thinks often of his ancestors now, the faces carved into the temple walls, the names inscribed in glyphs that spiral across stone. They gaze out with wide eyes, eternal and unmoved. He wonders how they felt in the twilight of their reigns. Did they, too, feel the pull of the earth beneath their feet? The quiet hum of time slipping away? At night, Pakal dreams. In the stillness of his chambers, beneath the weight of heavy woven blankets, his mind drifts into visions. He sees the temples as they will stand long after he is gone, weathered by rain, embraced by roots, their stories half forgotten but not erased. He sees his sons, Khan Bahlam, so strong, so eager to shape the world, and his younger children, their eyes wide with wonder and fear, the burdens of the future already flickering in their gazes. He sees them walking these same paths, their footsteps mingling with his in the dust. And in his dreams, he sometimes sees himself, not as a king, but as a child once more, running barefoot through the courtyards, the sun warm on his skin, the sky endless above him. The boy who listened to the stories, who traced the glyphs with trembling fingers, who dared to believe that stone could hold eternity. The boy is still there, somewhere inside the old man, but the body fades. Illness comes, slow at first. A cough, a heaviness in the chest, a weakness in the limbs that will not lift no matter how many herbs the healers prepare. The priests whisper their prayers. The healers burn their incense, grind their powders, press cool cloths to his forehead. But Pakal knows. He can feel it, like a shadow slipping beneath the door, like water seeping into stone. His family gathers close. Khan Bahlam stands at his side, silent, steady, though the lines of worry crease his brow. The boy is no longer a boy. He carries himself with the bearing of a king, shoulders squared, gaze sharp, voice low but firm when he speaks. Pakal watches him and feels a flicker of peace. The line will continue. The city will endure. But there is so much left unsaid, so many stories unfinished. One day, as the sky darkens with the promise of rain, Pakal calls his son close. His voice is thin, barely more than a breath, but it carries the weight of years, of dreams carved in stone. "Listen," he says. And Khan Bahlam leans in, his ear close to his father's lips. Pakal speaks not of battles or conquests, but of the stones, of how each temple must align with the stars, how the walls must tell stories that will outlive their builders, how every carving is a prayer, every step a hymn. He speaks of the gods, not as distant, cold figures, but as presences that breathe in the wind, whisper in the rain, shimmer in the starlight. He speaks of the city, how it must be tended, nurtured, protected like a flame, how power is not just held but carried with humility, like a torch in the dark. And when his voice falters, when the breath leaves him in a soft, slow exhale, Khan Bahlam rests his hand on his father's. The silence stretches long, filled only by the sound of rain tapping softly on the stone roof above. Outside, the city continues. The stones hold their stories. The jungle presses in, green and restless. And in the quiet of the temple chambers, Pakal breathes, once, twice, and then no more. The king is gone, but the city remains. The cycle turns. The rain has stopped. The jungle exhales a slow, heavy breath, as if the trees themselves bow their heads in mourning. The air is thick, fragrant with the scent of wet leaves, damp stone, and the faint smoke rising from the altars where priests burn offerings of copal. The city is hushed, waiting. Each temple, each plaza holding its breath, as if even the stones understand that something sacred has passed. Pakal is gone, his breath stilled, his voice silent, his gaze no longer sweeping the horizon. But the city he built stands, quiet, resolute, alive in the hands of those who remain. And now a question lingers in the air, heavy as the storm clouds. How do you bury a king who dreamed of eternity? In the heart of Palenque, beneath the grand temple of the inscriptions, the answer begins to take shape. The tomb is not just a resting place. It is a story carved in stone, a doorway to the next world, a message to the gods and to the generations yet to come. The artisans work by torchlight, their hands steady despite the weight of their task. They carve with reverence, shaping glyphs that speak of Pakal's life, his victories, his lineage, and his vision. The walls bloom with symbols, spirals of time, faces of gods, the arcs of celestial bodies traced in careful lines. The story is laid out in full, a narrative etched into the very bones of the earth. The great stone sarcophagus rests at the center, a lid carved with a vision of Pakal himself, poised between the earth and the heavens, rising like a seed toward the stars. His body lies within, wrapped in cloth, adorned with the riches of a king. Jade beads strung across his chest, shells and pearls woven into his garments, the green gleam of a jade mask resting upon his face. That mask, it is more than ornament. It is a symbol, a prayer, a promise. The artisans shape it from the finest jade, each piece fitted with precision, the surface polished to a soft glow. The eyes stare outward, calm, eternal, almost serene. It is the face of a man who has crossed the threshold, who has stepped beyond the reach of mortal time and into the endless cycle of the gods. The burial is a quiet, reverent affair. The priests chant softly, their voices rising and falling like the wind through the trees. The air is thick with incense, the scent curling through the chamber, clinging to the walls, sinking into the very stones. The flicker of torchlight dances across the carved surfaces, shadows shifting like whispers in the dark. Khan Bahlam stands at the edge of the tomb, his face a mask of composure, but his hands tremble slightly as he holds a small offering bowl. Cacao, maize, a fragment of jade. He places it beside his father's body, a simple gesture, but one heavy with meaning. He bows his head, his breath caught in his throat, and in that moment, the boy who once chased his father's footsteps across the plazas is gone. A man stands in his place, a king now, burdened with the weight of legacy. Above them, the temple rises, layer upon layer, stairway upon stairway, each stone laid with purpose, each carving placed to tell a part of the story. The architects have designed it as a sacred map, aligning with the sun, the stars, the turning of the heavens. It is a bridge between worlds, a marker in the great cycle of time. As the years pass, the tomb is sealed. The passages are hidden, the doorways closed. The jungle creeps in, vines curling around stone, roots pressing into cracks, leaves littering the steps. The world moves forward, and the memory of the tomb, its exact location, its purpose, fades into myth. But the city does not forget. Not entirely. Stories whisper through the generations of the king who ruled for decades, who built temples that touched the sky, who spoke with the gods and left his mark upon the earth. Children grow up tracing the glyphs on the temple walls, their fingers following the spirals and faces, not fully understanding, but feeling the weight of them all the same. And deep beneath the stones, Pakal rests. Or perhaps he does not rest. Perhaps he waits. The jade mask gleams softly in the darkness, catching the faintest flicker of torchlight from far above. His bones lie quiet, but the story carved around them hums with quiet energy. The gods, it is said, listen even now, their ears pressed to the stones, waiting for the prayers that still rise in the smoke, for the questions that echo in the hearts of those who stand beneath the temple walls and look up. Pakal is gone, but his tomb is not just a place of endings. It is a place of beginnings. A place where dreams, like seeds, sleep beneath the earth, waiting for the rain, for the sun, for the hand of time to lift them back into the light. The tomb is a promise that stories endure, that stones remember, that kings, too, can become gods. The jungle does not sleep. Long after the last torch has burned low in the temples of Palenque, the trees whisper, the wind sighs through the leaves, and the vines creep ever forward, silent, patient, inevitable. Night creatures stir in the undergrowth, their eyes catching the faintest glint of moonlight. The stones, too, breathe, warming in the sun, cooling in the dark, their surfaces slick with moss, their glyphs softened by rain and time. But listen closely, and you might hear something else. Not just the call of howler monkeys or the rustle of leaves. No, there is something deeper. An echo, faint but insistent. The echo of footsteps on stone, the distant thrum of drums, the soft murmur of voices rising in prayer. A city's heartbeat, pulsing through the earth long after the bodies that built it have turned to dust. This is the song of Palenque, and Pakal, though gone, is woven into every note. Years pass, seasons turn. The jungle swells, claiming the edges of the plazas, creeping up the sides of the temples. Vines wrap around columns, roots push through cracked stones, leaves gather in quiet drifts against the steps. Rain falls, eroding the carvings, softening the sharp edges of glyphs that once spoke of gods and kings. The city breathes more slowly now, its heartbeat muffled beneath layers of green. But the people remember. They whisper stories to their children, of the king who ruled for decades, who built temples that reached for the sky, who spoke to the gods in dreams and left behind a city that shimmered like a reflection of the stars. They tell of the jade mask, hidden deep within the earth, of the tomb sealed with secrets, of the promise that Pakal still watches, waiting in the shadowed places beneath the stone. And sometimes, when the wind shifts just so, when the moon is high and full, those who walk the quiet paths of the jungle feel it. A presence, subtle and vast. The hairs on the back of their necks rise. The air feels thicker, charged, as if the gods themselves lean close to listen. They pause, hands resting on the smooth faces of the temples, eyes tracing the faded glyphs, lips moving in silent questions. Who built this? What were they dreaming? What have we forgotten? The echoes are everywhere. In the way the temples align with the stars, in the way the water flows through the aqueducts, in the patterns of the plazas that spiral out like the arms of a galaxy. Pakal's hand is in all of it. Even as time wears the stone, his vision lingers. a whisper woven into the very fabric of the earth. But not all who remember come with reverence. Travelers arrive curious, wide-eyed, their voices loud in the quiet spaces. They brush aside vines, sketch the glyphs, try to read the stories etched in stone. They take fragments, a shard of pottery here, a carved bead there, carrying them away as souvenirs, as if a piece of the past could be held in a pocket. They do not always see the full story. They marvel at the size of the temples, the precision of the carvings, but they do not always hear the heartbeat beneath it all, the soft, persistent pulse of a city that lived, breathed, and dreamed. A city that loved and lost. A city that still remembers. And deeper still, in the heart of the jungle, the tomb sleeps. The jade mask lies in darkness, untouched by the sun, the stories carved around it humming in silence. Pakal rests beneath the weight of stone and time, his body still, his dreams undisturbed. Or perhaps, just perhaps, he is listening too. The jungle has a way of holding its secrets. Roots crack stone, vines obscure carvings, moss blurs the lines of glyphs until they fade into the surface like whispers swallowed by the earth. And yet, the stories persist. Not just in the stones, but in the wind, in the rain, in the breath of those who dare to listen. Khan Bahalam builds upon his father's vision. New temples, new carvings, new stories layered atop the old. But even as the city grows, a part of it fades. The jungle presses in, insistent, wrapping itself around the bones of Palenque like a shroud. And when the generations turn, when the last torch is extinguished and the last priest whispers the final prayer, the city sinks into silence. Yet it is not truly lost. The echoes remain. They drift through the jungle, through the ruins, through the minds of those who walk here centuries later. Archaeologists kneel in the dirt, brushing dust from glyphs that glow green in the light. Their fingers trace the same lines Pakal once touched, their hearts racing with the thrill of discovery. They find the mask, the bones, the story carved into stone, and for a moment, the past breathes again. They do not know him, not fully. They know the name, the dates, the artifacts cataloged and stored, but they cannot feel the heat of the sun on the stone, the weight of the crown, the quiet ache in Pakal's bones as he stood atop his city and dreamed. They cannot hear the echoes as you can. Not if you stand in the jungle, close your eyes, and listen. The jungle does not sleep, and neither does the story. The jade mask gleams in the dark, a soft, steady glow, like a heartbeat captured in stone. Its surface is smooth, cool, and unyielding, the eyes wide and still, the mouth set in an expression that is neither smile nor frown, but something in between. A quiet knowing. The mask is more than an artifact. It is a memory, a promise, a bridge between worlds. Pakal's face is carved into it, but it is not just Pakal's story it holds. It holds the story of Palenque, of its people, of the dreams and the struggles, the hands that built the temples, the voices that rose in prayer, the feet that danced in the plazas, the blood spilled on the stones. It holds the story of a city that dared to reach for the sky and of the king who led them there. The mask rests beneath layers of earth and time, but its presence lingers, woven into the jungle's breath, into the hum of insects at dusk, into the rustle of leaves under moonlight. It is a reminder that some stories do not end, not truly. They fade, they shift, they sleep, but they do not die. When the archaeologists break through the stones centuries later, they do so carefully, their fingers trembling as they brush away the dust of ages. They lift the mask into the light for the first time in over 1,000 years, and for a brief moment, it seems to shimmer, not with the gleam of polished jade, but with the weight of all it has witnessed. The breath of a king, the prayers of a city, the slow, relentless turning of the earth. They hold it, and they see a king. But they do not see the boy who once ran barefoot through the courtyards, tracing glyphs with his fingers. They do not see the man who stood atop his temple and dreamed of a city that would touch the sky. They do not feel the quiet ache in his bones, the weight of the crown on his brow, the warmth of the sun on his skin as he watched his people build something that would outlast them all. They see an artifact, but the mask remembers. Pakal's legacy is not just the stones he built, nor the victories he claimed. It is the vision he carried, that a city could be more than walls and markets, that it could be a reflection of the cosmos itself, that each carving, each temple, each step in a stairway is part of a larger story, one that stretches from the stars to the earth and back again. His vision lives on in the alignment of the temples, in the patterns of the glyphs, in the way the sun touches the roof combs at certain times of year, casting long shadows across the plazas. It lives in the descendants who whispered his name long after his bones had turned to dust, in the jungle that wraps itself around the stones but does not erase them. And it lives in the mask. The jade is smooth beneath your fingers. If you close your eyes and listen, you might hear it, the faintest whisper, like wind through the leaves, like a breath caught between worlds. Remember me, not just as a king, but as a man who dared to dream. Remember the boy who traced the glyphs, the son who listened to the stories, the builder who watched the stars and tried to shape the earth in their image. Remember the city, the temples, the stones. Remember the people who lived here, who loved and worked and hoped beneath the same sky that stretches above you now. The mask rests in its glass case, clean and catalogued, its story reduced to lines in a museum guide. But it waits. It listens. And perhaps, in the quiet of the night, when the lights dim and the noise fades, it dreams. The legacy of Pakal is not measured in years or artifacts. It is measured in echoes, in dreams, in the breath of the jungle, the curve of a temple stair, the weight of a mask resting in your hands. It is measured in the stories we tell and the ones we choose to remember. The jungle sways in the warm breath of the wind. Leaves tremble in the hush of twilight. Stone temples rise like forgotten mountains, their surfaces softened by time, their stories hidden in the quiet curves of glyphs half swallowed by moss. The air holds the scent of earth after rain, of crushed flowers, of incense burned long ago. And somewhere, beneath it all, Pakal waits. His bones lie in the darkness, wrapped in cloth, cradled by stone. His mask, that gleaming jade face, stares upward, unblinking, serene, timeless. The weight of centuries presses down, yet it does not erase. It only deepens the silence, the stillness, the quiet hum of memory. Pakal's story is not just carved into the temples, not just written in the glyphs. It lingers in the air, in the rustle of leaves, in the shimmer of moonlight on stone. It whispers through the corridors of Palenque, calling to those who dare to listen. His gaze is eternal, not because he ruled for decades, nor because his name is etched in jade, but because he dreamed, because he built, because he dared to believe that stone could hold the sky, that a city could be a mirror of the cosmos, that a life could echo beyond its final breath. The jungle will grow, the stones will fade, but the echoes remain. And so we remember.